Lululemon is the pinnacle of activewear. The brand almost single-handedly made your gym clothes fashionable and pioneered the multi-billion-dollar industry into what it is today. But their impact goes way beyond the money. Lululemon created a new aesthetic ideal for society and women in particular that you can still see today in 2022. On the surface, they might seem like a brand that's championing health and an active lifestyle, but the Lululemon community isn't all sunshine and rainbows. Now, before things get started, I have to say that this video is sponsored by Morning Brew. Now, Lululemon's impact on society is hard to define because, of course, there has been a lot of other factors that have brought us to the point where we are today. But the lifestyle that they promote has had a lasting effect on society and has recently resurfaced into one of pop culture's newest trends, that girl.
Feel like sun on my skin.
Now, as a 30-year-old white dude, I'm not gonna try and pretend that I know the intricacies of the that girl trend, but this is what our female writing team has put together for me to present to you, so please do not kill me. The that girl trend focuses on encouraging women to optimize their lives to be as healthy and productive as possible by following as many of the modern self-care routines as they possibly can. That girl is perfect. They are productive, attractive, socially conscious, feminine, and above all else, healthy. Now, as I said, I am not the expert on this subject, but would it surprise you to know that this trend was kind of invented by a man? Yeah, we got a lot to get into. Now, before we get into this video, I have to say that I own Lululemon clothing, and honestly, I love it. It's great. It's lasted an incredibly long time, and it functions perfectly for what I bought it for. See, what I did there was an exercise in positive thinking. What we're going to get into in this video is a rather unfortunate tale of a company with a rotten core. So, to break up the depressing facts, we're going to share the odd positive takeaway so that we're balancing our opinions on one side and also to make this video a little bit more palatable for you watching at home. With that being said, let's get into Chip Wilson. Now, it's hard to grasp what Lululemon is about without knowing a thing or two about its colorful founder, Chip Wilson. Now, Chip Wilson is no longer on the company board after a rather tactless expression of some of his many opinions, but don't let his absence from the board fool you into thinking that his views don't affect the company, as he is still one of their largest shareholders. Now, we could do an entire video on the crazy that Wilson has said in the past, but you'll get a picture of what he's all about as we go along, so let's skip to the iconic moment when he came up with the vision for Lululemon. He literally founded the company to make women's butts look better. This is true. Back in '97, Wilson was doing some yoga in a studio and he was fascinated by the instructor's butt, which looked apparently quite nice in the sheer dance attire she was wearing, and then he was inspired. At roughly the same time that Chip was ogling butts in a yoga studio, major athletic companies at the time like Nike and Adidas had adopted more of a shrink it and pink it policy when it came to making women's athletic attire. Basically, they would just take men's clothing, make them smaller, and pink, because pink is for girls.
On Wednesdays, we wear pink.
But Wilson was different, and he was determined to tailor things a little bit more intentionally. He wanted to create a high-quality product that would stand out from the competition at the time, but more importantly, he wanted customers to feel confident in their new clothes. And while this sounds great, it is actually the root of the manipulative genius that Lululemon holds as a brand. See, Chip found ways to create a slimming effect by placing pant seams on the sides or around the butt in just the right way to make them look good. Now, this is something that is very common today, but this was pretty innovative at the time. Lululemon also addressed the dreaded camel toe situation by embracing the crotch gusset, a triangular shape in, well, the crotch area that prevents them from riding up, making these leggings not only more comfortable, but also socially acceptable to wear in public. That's right, we are all wearing Lululemon in bars and restaurants today because of a triangular piece of clothing in your crotch. Things I did not think I was going to say on the internet. But this literal quote is something that I think perfectly encapsulates Wilson's perspective on the company as a whole. I persisted because I believed that eventually men would tell women the pants looked great without really understanding why. The more you think about it, the weirder that sentence is. Whatever you think of this man's intentions, he succeeded marvelously at what he was going for, to the point where Lululemon is pretty much famous for its effect on butts. This alone, however, was not enough to propel Lululemon to the $40 billion international household name that it is today. No matter how high quality the product is or how good your butt looks when you wear it, a company that reaches this level of scale did it through absolute genius marketing. Now, if you're interested in business and the happenings of the world, you might enjoy this video's sponsor, which is Morning Brew. That's right, we have our first sponsor here on Future Proof, and that is mostly thanks to all of you who enjoy and subscribe to this channel. So thank you so much. And please indulge in us for a moment here because we're pretty proud. Now, doom scrolling on social media when you wake up first thing in the morning might be your routine, but it probably doesn't make you feel great. Morning Brew is a free daily newsletter that focuses on everything relating to business, finance, and tech. Morning Brew offers relevant and informative content rather than traditional news, which can be quite boring, and it's a lot better than Facebook, which is just depressing. Lately, I've been using Morning Brew to wake up, and it honestly feels way more productive as a way to start your day. Through Morning Brew, I actually learned that Lululemon is entering the footwear industry now and will be releasing their first running shoe. This is information I would not have normally come across otherwise because I don't follow fashion-related content on social media, but it's definitely something that I am curious about. Morning Brew is the first sponsor we've had on this channel, which is massive. It helps us create this content for you. So please go and show them some love. It takes only 15 seconds to subscribe and it's completely free. So click the link down in the description and subscribe today. Now, when you think of Lululemon, there is probably a type of person that comes to mind. This is completely intentional and was actually a product of what Chip Wilson calls the Supergirl. Do you see where the that girl trend might have originated? To be clear, this creation of an archetype customer is very common within all kinds of marketing, and it is a key component of most successful companies. But the Lululemon type and the company culture around it was so aggressive that people started to genuinely question whether or not it was a cult. Like, for real. He essentially defined Supergirls as daughters of divorced parents who were raised in part by single sports dads and who wanted to be like the male characters they saw in Saturday morning cartoons, wearing capes and stretchy fabric outfits. This is incredibly stupid because, as we all know,
no kicks!
Turns out Wilson was heavily influenced by Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged, which is like this super politically charged 1,000+ page novel that promotes Rand's philosophy of objectivism. To oversimplify this, basically the idea is that you should only think about yourself. Basically, Wilson wanted to foster these super go-getters who were fixated on self-improvement. To this end, he actually required his employees to listen to motivational Brian Tracy audiobooks and take part in the controversial Landmark Forum Self-Improvement series, which has been described by some as, yes, a cult, an exercise in brainwashing, and a marketing trick cooked up by a con man to sap the vulnerable of their savings. To top it all off, apparently Wilson also established an employee book club culminating in Atlas Shrugged. Leave it to frickin' Chip to ruin book clubs too. Now, to be clear, Wilson is no longer in charge of the company and a lot of these practices aren't being practiced anymore. But the company vision is still to, quote, elevate the world from mediocrity to greatness, which has a weird vibe to it. Basically, Lululemon is marketing a lifestyle rather than a product. We've covered a couple other lifestyle brands on this channel that do the same thing, like Apple and Hydro Flask. But Lululemon is like the epitome of this kind of business model in which customers are called to feel like a part of the brand community because they identify with a certain aspirational image. The underlying message is, if you buy our product, you can make your dreams and future a reality. I feel like those Lululemon bags that you get when you buy something is the perfect embodiment of this. All those little aspirational quotes and sayings, that is the whole thing. Now just for a second, I want to acknowledge a positive aspect of the Lululemon brand here. It is amazing that they are promoting health and well-being and the idea that, you know what, you can just get it. If you really try, you can lose weight, or you can, improve your health. You can feel better about yourself. That's a great idea, especially in a world where there's a lot of companies that don't give a shit about your health. But the problem is, here in this context, these values are there for slightly more exploitative purposes. One of the biggest complaints about Lululemon culture is that it fosters a fixation on health, but to an unhealthy degree. Implicit in their whole mediocrity to greatness vision is the sense that people who aren't perfect are, well, mediocre. It doesn't take much digging into Lululemon's beginnings to get the impression that Chip Wilson was not a very sympathetic person to those who don't look like the stereotypical Supergirl that he had in mind. Like, he once actually argued that illness is mostly a choice, a sentiment that did not age super well now that Wilson has been diagnosed with his own rare genetic condition. Then, perhaps most infamously, when customers started complaining that their $100 pair of yoga pants were too sheer and pilly, he actually put the blame on the customers.
Quite frankly, some women's bodies just actually don't work for it.
And it is, of course, statements like this that led up to him stepping down from the board of directors entirely. Now, things seem to have chilled out a bit since Wilson stepped down, but you can't just completely overhaul the lifestyle and aesthetic branding of a company. Lululemon became successful largely by pushing self-improvement, and that's still a huge part of its brand today. We're still seeing complaints about a cult-like workplace of toxic positivity where you better be a supreme health nut or you ain't worth squat. Now, there is a lot of stuff that we could talk about when it comes to Lululemon, and if you're interested in seeing another video about them in the future, let us know down in the comments below. Honestly, Lululemon makes good stuff. I've enjoyed the products that I've owned. Granted, I bought them quite a long time ago. Maybe things have changed today, but we have to consider companies for more than just the stuff that they make, because what they stand for can have a huge impact on society. This idea that we as people, and women in particular, should always be striving for perfection is really toxic, and it makes a lot of people's lives really difficult. The that girl trend is the perfect embodiment of that today, which proves that these kinds of ideas have not gone away just because Chip is no longer on the board of directors of the world's largest athletic brand. But hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, literally like it down below and make sure that you are subscribed to the channel. And if you do that, then we'll see you every single week for a new video. Thanks for stopping by. There is probably a type. Why did I do it that way? Whew. Hey, Leah, do you know Ayn Rand? I guess she hates me.